All right, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the CICU College Fair. This is a panel that we're putting on and recording for your use and viewing. I'm joined today. My name is William Woods-Horning. I go by Woods. I'm the director of EOP and HEOP at Cornell University. And I currently actually serve as the president of the HEOP professional organization as well. And I'm joined by some colleagues across the state. And we're going to talk a little bit. So I'm going to have folks introduce themselves, the college, where they're at, the size of the program, to give you a little bit of insight into the different programs, and then we'll jump into questions. So Aaron, do you mind starting us off?
Sure, yes. My name is Aaron Ray. I'm the assistant director for the Higher Education and Opportunity Program at Skidmore College.
And we'll just work our way around the screen. So Bill, do you mind introducing yourself?
Not at all. Thanks, Wood. I'm Bill Short. I'm the director of HEOP at St. Lawrence University in Canton, New York, which is the far northern edge of the state, north of the Adirondacks, right near the Canadian border. We are a small private liberal arts college, non-denominational. In other words, we are not religious affiliated at all, in spite of the name St. Lawrence. We're just near the St. Lawrence River. And I bring in 18 to 20 new students per year.
Thank you, Bill. Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren Cahave. I'm the assistant director of HEOP at Vaughn College. On average, we take in about 20 to 30 new HEOP students a year. We are located in Queens, New York, right across the street from LaGuardia Airport.
Nadine.
Hi, my name is Nadine Shardlow. I am the executive director of the Higher Educational Opportunity Program, the Educational Opportunity Program, and the Center for Advising at Alfred University, which is in Alfred, New York, one of the most rural areas, again, in New York, and I'm happy to be here.
And last but not least, Claudette.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Claudette Aldaba, and I'm the director for the Office of Equity and Inclusion at Bard College, who happens to oversee the HEOP program. With regards to location, we're actually in the Mid-Hudson region of New York, which is about 2 hours north from New York City. And we are a very small liberal arts institution, and I bring about 9 to 10 students every year.
Thank you, Claudette. I guess I should have said where Cornell is. So we're in Ithaca, New York, which is upstate, but in the center of the state between Syracuse and Binghamton. And we bring about 50 students a year between EOP and HEOP. We're a large institution, about 15,000 undergrads. So to start us off, I'm going to ask my colleague Bill to talk a little bit about opportunity programs, our history, and things of that nature.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Woods. So important things to know about this program is it begins in the civil rights era in the early and mid 60s. A gentleman by the name of Percy Sutton, who was a Tuskegee airman, came back from fighting for his country in World War II and realized that folks who looked like him as a person of color had relatively fewer options and opportunities in life than maybe some other people. And he had the opportunity to learn that through his service to the country. He proposed and put together the very first program that would provide both financial support and academic support for people who would need that in order to get into college and succeed and thrive. So in 1964, he put together a program that was originally called College Discovery, and then it was called SEEK in the CUNY system, City University of New York. And then in 1967, Mr. Arthur O. Eve, who was the deputy speaker of the New York State Assembly from the Buffalo area, he's actually still alive out there, but he's retired now, long since. He liked the idea. He liked the idea of giving people an opportunity to get into college and transform their lives who would otherwise have that opportunity. And so he proposed putting what he called the Educational Opportunity Program, or EOP, at SUNY Buffalo State College. The year after that, from his position in Albany, he started to roll that out across the state. And then in 1969, legislation was written that authorized the Higher Education Opportunity Program in the private colleges. And so the three branches of New York State Opportunity Programs, HEOP in the private colleges, EOP in the SUNY sector, and SEEK and College Discovery in the CUNY sector, all launched in a broad way in 1969. So moving forward, today we continue to serve that mission. We are looking for students who are smart, who are motivated, but who haven't necessarily had the opportunity to capitalize on that, and therefore they may have lower test scores and other kind of traditional indicators of college success than other people. But I want you to also understand that when we bring students in, even though they may have a lower test score, a lower SAT score, or other kinds of indicators, they tend to outperform everybody else on our campuses and graduate at just as high and higher rates, usually a higher place in the class, and go on to careers, to graduate programs and so forth at an enormously successful rate. So we have a program motto, HEOP works, because we can prove that coming to college through our support systems is the best chance that a person will have to transform their own life and that of their family through higher education, which remains the single best ladder upward in this country's economy. So I touched on the three, SEEK, EOP, and HEOP, mentioned that they're in different sectors. I would also say that unique among those programs, HEOP is required by its contract with the state to provide full need financial aid packaging. And that means that we may have a higher price tag in the private sector, but our aid is going to be substantially better. And very, very often, our students will come through a private institution and take out lower loans than if they went to a public. And so that's kind of a really brief, high altitude view of what the program is and where it came from. Thanks, Wood.
Thanks, Bill. I appreciate that. It still gives me chills every time I hear it. So I think one of the first things we want to touch on as we think about this is, you know, the whole world has kind of been tossed around with COVID-19, and that, I mean, realistically, that hits our programs, it hits our institutions, hits our students as well. So thinking about that and thinking about HEOP and our students, Claudette, can you talk a little bit about, you know, how things have changed for students and how our program has changed in the midst of COVID-19?
Yes. So keeping it 100 real, right? The fact that the truth is that everything has changed, from how we do admissions to how we run summer programs to how advising plays out and student support and student experience on the ground. Everything has changed. But I can tell you from my own personal experience is the fact that everything has changed. We just had to really pivot really, really closely. So I think it's a matter of we had to collaborate with the college in a way that we've never done. You know, before it was kind of like, oh, we'll just collaborate. But this was quite imperative for us to really collaborate across the board and say, hey, listen, this is the need. What does it look like? So I think we're still able to provide our students with the support. It just looks different. It's really in a virtual setting. And I think for my, at least for my, I'll speak for myself and my staff, we had to be that much more intentional when it came to the summer programming. It was not just doing things as we've done it, because it felt, you know, when you do things every year after year, it just feels like, okay, I know what I'm doing. But this time around, I think we were all challenged in a level nobody really expected. But then that really gave us an opportunity to really break some assumptions. You know, we're like, oh, you can't really get much, you know, you can't really capture the essence of HEOP on a virtual setting. But I'm happy to inform that that's not true, that we were still able to collaborate across the board with parents, with faculty, with students, and really still capture them at their best, and also allowing space for things to be not okay, because it is the middle of a global pandemic. So I think as we open the doors to higher education to the upcoming students, it's really this understanding. And I tell my students, it's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to not get the help, right? So what does that really look like? So it's really opened up a lot of conversations in ways that before we would like kind of, you know, beat around the bush until we got to it sometimes, you know, mental health being one of them, right? Especially in communities of color, that's oftentimes not something that's welcome. But this time around, it's changed the language, it's changed the approach, you know, and right now we're really helping our students really practice patience. I think this generation is different, right? Where everything gets done so quickly. But now I think we're all being challenged to say, can you slow down, and can you be patient, and can you ask for help, you know, and can you be flexible? And I think ultimately these are really important skill sets that if we allow our students to foster now, by the time they graduate college, they'll be much better, you know, for it. So, yeah, everything has changed. That's just the reality, right? And across the globe and across, you know, our nation, everything has changed. And COVID has brought so many other issues to the forefront. you know, and I don't think we have enough time to talk about that now, but I think within the HEOP community across all colleges in New York State, there's a lot of conversations happening on an institutional level with regards to how they're becoming anti-racist campuses. You know, I think during COVID, then Black Lives Matter came in and everybody was home. So there was no way that people could just like turn their head and say, oh, that's not happening. It's happening, right? So yeah, COVID and everything else is happening. But so everything has changed. Things are not what they used to be, and that's okay. We just have to learn how to lead with compassion, lead with kindness, you know, and ultimately for all the HEOP students out there, they know that they still have HEOP and there's still a community. I'll tell you that this past week, we were actually allowed by the college to have a Friendsgiving, you know, and 55 of our students showed up, and everybody would have showed up, but because of the numbers, 55 showed up, and they showed up in their little cohorts, and they were there and they followed the rules, but they were in family and they felt really good about it. So everything's changed, but we're just learning to pivot, to be flexible, and to really lead with innovative ideas, you know, because that's just the reality of things right now.
Thank you so much, Claudette. Lauren, you have something you want to add?
Yeah, so Claudette mentioned something really nice, that they came in as a little family. And so while everything has changed for us, one thing has absolutely remained the same, and it's that HEOP is a family. We are your new family, your college family. This is the family that you chose. We chose you, and we are still there to support our students. It's just different. So before, when a student would pop into your office, now a student is popping into your Zoom room. So instead of hearing hi right away, you hear that little doorbell sound. But we are still there to support our students and do everything that we can to make sure that they are being successful and that they have all the tools that they need.
Absolutely. I know for my team and myself, technology has become something we've learned quite a bit about as we host, you know, virtual times to get together, and family hours and listening parties and game nights, and never anything that I mean, I've been doing this for almost 15 years now and haven't really ever thought about trying to build a community in a virtual environment because we're so used to just having folks together. So thank you both for sharing. I want to jump into a little bit about thinking about how we apply for HEOP and what that looks like in criteria in that process. So I'm gonna tag Nadine and Aaron if you all would mind sharing a little bit, because I know you both have some great experience in the admissions piece of the puzzle.
Aaron, you want me to go? Okay, so at Alfred University, we do certainly partner with our admissions office and our financial aid office when we are reviewing applications. We use a platform called Slate, where our all the files and applications are housed. You know, I think what's incredibly important for students to realize and to recognize about HEOP in particular is that we really are compassionate about the students that we bring in. We do at Alfred University hold interviews, and to be quite honest with you, that interview is the most exciting part of the whole process, because we can have a conversation with you, with students, and get to know you a little bit better. You know, not Alfred University in our rural location, probably about 6 hours away from New York City, hour and a half away from Buffalo and Rochester, 2 hours from Syracuse, is pretty remote. And so we really like to share what the campus community will be like. And you know, now it's going to be virtual, right? So we've done our interviewing mostly virtual from a cost perspective, et cetera. This year, we're going to do the same thing. But I think we'd like to have more of a conversation with our students that we are interviewing, just to get a feel for who you are. You know, we're not going to have maybe SAT scores, ACT scores. Those are optional here at AU this year. Maybe we'll have some region scores, maybe we won't. So the way that we look at our students, I think, is going to be very different. You know, I've always said that having a conversation with someone and being able to let them be a little bit more introspective and think about themselves and the environment that they're choosing is really important. I came to Alfred University ages ago. I'm not going to tell you when, because that's not important. But what made me stay here was the individuality that I learned about myself along with my academics. And that to me is one of the reasons that I chose Alfred. I didn't have a choice. My father said, you're going to college. So it was just a matter of where. And so it's important for you as a student coming to college to get that feel. You've got to really feel where you're going. And I think that part of the process of admissions is that conversation that you have with the program, depending upon the policies and procedures at that particular school. Will you be able to visit? I don't know, but take the virtual tour. Ask to speak with students that are currently enrolled. They're going to give you a really good picture of what their support systems are and what they've used throughout their careers here, whether it be first years or seniors. They're going to let you know, and you'll be able to kind of grab all that information to make a decision for yourself. You know, one of the things I'm going to talk about financial aid a little bit later, but that's another piece that can sometimes be really complicated. So don't hesitate to ask questions, especially during your interview process. And talk with your counselors. Make sure that you feel comfortable about the questions that you might have, and ask away.
I think one of the hard things about applying for HEOP is the fact that you can't always apply for HEOP at an institution you're interested in. At Skidmore, there is no checkbox for HEOP, and it's the same way at many other institutions. So when you apply, you're first reviewed by the admissions office. And then if they feel like you meet the criteria, oftentimes the criteria that they don't share with the public, they will refer your application over to our office. And that's when we will review the applications. We will reach out to collect required financial aid documents. And this year for Skidmore, we will be hosting Zoom interviews for our finalists, but that hasn't always been the case. And I know that there's other institutions that are doing that. It's really important that you collaborate with your college advisor. They are often in the know about programs, and if they don't know, they know how to connect you or connect themselves to our programs, because each program has a different philosophy. Each program has a different approach to how they do the admissions process. Some programs are going to require interviews. Other programs, it's going to be optional. Some programs are going to allow students to apply early decision or early action. Other programs won't. So while it can seem really daunting and really confusing, if you lean on your college counselor and you take your time and make contact with our offices are always willing to walk students through our process.
Aaron, Nadine, you both made great points. And I think, Aaron, the one thing that I want to pick up on is you're talking about academics are very individualized by the college that you apply to. So, you know, when we're talking about finances, and we'll talk about financial aid in a minute, but when we're talking about finances, the finances are universal across HEOP and EOP as to, you know, what those eligibility criteria levels are based on, you know, household size, X, Y, and Z. But academically, you know, each institution looks a little different. So I think the biggest encouragement for students is, you know, if you're interested, reach out and find out, because, you know, you may be eligible academically at one school and not at another, and you won't know that unless you've asked that question. You know, and I think that's a big point. The other thing that came up that you shared, I want to go around the room and see where folks are at. SAT optional, SAT free is terminology that's used, and interviews. So who here does interviews? Okay, basically everybody except for me. Okay, and SAT optional and SAT free. How are we doing that this year with programs?
Skidmore is test free.
Skidmore is free. Okay.
Yeah.
Optional.
BARD has been for the last 40 years. So.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, St. Lawrence has been for a long time as well. We don't need to adjust to the lack of SAT scores.
Excellent.
Vaughn's going optional.
Yep. So Vaughn's going optional this year, and Cornell's going. We're doing actually both optional and free, depending on the college that you apply to. So as we talked, you know, as Claudette was hitting some of those things a minute ago about the changes in COVID. I mean, here's one of them that we're looking at right off the bat as we think about the admissions process. Okay, let's talk a little bit about financial aid, and think about that. And Bill touched on it a little bit in his history about the contract that we have to provide full need funding. So, Nadine, what does that look like when we're talking about financial aid?
Sure. And so the first step in the financial eligibility process is for students to fill out their FAFSA, their free application for federal student aid, which will ask you for information regarding your family's 2019 income. Once the campuses have received that, and it's important for you, I think you can put up to 10 schools on your FAFSA. So it's important for you to make sure that you include the codes for the schools that you are interested in. One of the pieces that you don't want to get caught up in is not having that information. That is the first indicator for financial aid to make those decisions about student eligibility for our opportunity programs. Next is your TAP application. TAP applications are connected to your FAFSA. We encourage you to complete the TAP application right after you complete the FAFSA to prevent you having to go back and complete that TAP application. Those two steps are pivotal in moving your application forward for eligibility purposes. There are some institutions that have HEOP programs that will accept you, accept all students in a group. Then from there, they will determine whether you are eligible for the higher education opportunity or for a local program that they may have attached to their institution. So at Alfred, we don't have that. So we are considered an upfront verification school. What that means is that we will need to verify your eligibility economically before we offer you acceptance into the program. That's the piece that gets a little bit complicated as we need to collect data that demonstrates your eligibility through all kinds of avenues. For example, if you are a student who receives social services, you will need to meet with your social services caseworker to make sure that you get the documentation that shows what you received in 2019 as far as income. It could be cash assistance, it could be food stamps, it could be housing benefits, all kinds of things that mesh into there. If your family, if you live with, there's a divorce in your family, you live with mom, does mom receive child support? There's all kinds of these little pieces of information that we need to collect because what we're looking for is total income for the family. A lot of this has been very tricky due to COVID. The shutdown of many of the governmental agencies, the reduced workforce in those agencies has really put a delay on receiving some of this information. We understand that. As soon as we can get a hold of it, the better. But we certainly understand the result of COVID and how that has delayed those processes. I think the important thing for you to understand is that this is a historic economic disadvantagement, right? So we're not looking at family income in 2019 as a result of a recent unemployment situation. We're looking for students who show economic sensitivities that are historic. And that's true too with the academic portion. We're looking for students who have not been able to receive some of the resources that some others have been, which makes it very competitive for you to get into a school. Some schools will have forms that are related to their financial aid processes. You need to pay attention to those. They will tell you exactly what it is that you need to provide in order to document your eligibility. That also includes who is a member of your household. There are many forms that will ask you to state who are the people in your household, whether they are immediate family members, maybe they are relatives that live with you. All of those kinds of pieces of information are things that we need to gather in order to determine your eligibility. Once you are determined eligible, I think that I can confidently say for all institutions, you will be very pleased with your aid package. One of the philosophies with HEOP is that the grant helps us to reduce the loans that you need to take out for your education. I think sometimes there's an assumption that, you know, students want no loans. And that's possible in some cases, but it's not possible in all cases. So it's very important for you to make sure that you review your aid packages when they're sent to you and ask questions related to them of things that you don't understand. Because we want to make sure that you fully understand what your aid package looks like and what it's going to be covering for you, so that you and your families can plan for, you know, if there are any out-of-pocket expenses. I think you'll find with HEOP that's very rare that you will have any out-of-pocket expenses.
Thank you, Nadine. I think that's a great piece of the puzzle when you're looking at how we all package. You know, in all of our institutions here, I think we package a little bit differently as well. I know our commitment is trying to get students out with the least amount of loan as possible. We're trying to get students to graduate with the least amount of debt. But it is campus to campus how things work. And I don't know if folks want to share like what a typical package may look like on your campus, or how you all build campuses or your packages. Anyone up to share?
So at Alfred, for example, we give our students a housing grant, so that if a student is living on campus, they receive a housing grant. Average award for HEOP students from an institutional budget perspective is about $21,000 to $22,000 a year. We offer our students, obviously, the HEOP grant. They have trustee grants that we award students. So pretty much our students are leaving Alfred. So in a first-year student, your loan is about $3,500 on a $52,000 bill. So yeah, it's pretty good package.
Aaron, you wanted to share?
Yeah, so at Skidmore, your first year, your loan is capped at $1,800, and then each year after that, it's about $2,200. But students are expected to contribute about $500 a year from working over the summer or through work study. But our students typically graduate with less than $9,000 in student loan debt, which is great. And if you take into account, you know, if a student studies abroad, their flight to and from the country is paid for. So that could be a really big cost that they don't end up having. And then also our students' books and supplies are covered each semester, which could save students up to $650 per semester. So even if our students do graduate with that $9,000 in student loans, they've probably received that $9,000 in another way.
Yeah, absolutely. Bill, you wanted to share?
Yeah, sure. At St. Lawrence University, in the first year, we fund with 100% grant money, meaning money that you don't have to pay back, and that covers tuition, room and board, because all of our students live on campus, so room and board pays for the dorm and the meal plan. We have also the stipend for books, travel, and a small amount for just personal expenses, and we don't even ask our students what they're doing with that. It's personal. So whatever it is that you need on the side that's not going to be part of your regular financial aid package, we cover that way as well. We do expect loans to kick in the sophomore, junior, and senior year, but we also offer the opportunity to do work study on campus to make that a lower amount. And so similar to Skidmore, by the time you're done, you're going to be under $10,000 somewhere in loans, give or take, depending on some choices that you might make, or if you can bring in outside scholarships. And I have had students who earned enough in the summer to not have to take out loans at all. Some who have qualified for additional kinds of aid. New York State Native American aid, for example, is one of those. And so those students will usually come through loan-free. So we also, besides being good with packaging up front, we're also very good resources to help students figure out some of those other things to make sure they're coming out the backside with the lowest possible loan.
Excellent, thank you. And I think there's one really important thing for all the students to look at is, the reality is all of our campuses will demonstrate what goes into the cost of attendance on their website. And I think that's key to pay attention to. As you're looking at, it's a little bit more homework for you as a student to look at the institutions that you're interested in, but it can really paint a picture for you when you look across the board of how things are calculated, as Bill and Nadine and Aaron all talked about, books and housing costs and meal plan costs. Like, get a sense of what's in the package. I can say for Cornell, we have a pretty comprehensive cost of attendance, which I feel pretty solid to say the 6 folks on the screen are all kind of in the same boat. But we have housing, we have meal plan, we have books, we have a travel expense, we have health insurance, we have those personal miscellaneous, and that's all built in there to try to make sure that we're capturing as much of what the cost to be a student would look like. And for us, we do our best to really package our students without any loans or parent contribution. We're trying to, based on what FAFSA will say, but we're also an institution when it comes to financial aid that we look at non-custodial income for packaging, and not every school is going to look at that as well. So you're going to want to look at the different pieces of the puzzle. And, we do take non-custodial into account for financial aid packaging, but we're not taking that into account when we're looking at the eligibility for the program, because eligibility for the program is based on the custodial household. And so there are little nuances here and there to really kind of dig in and learn. I'll share that I have a large percentage of my students who do graduate loan-free, but we have a summer expectation. So similar to Skidmore expects students to contribute $500. Ours is about $3,000 a year that we ask students to go out and bring back from the summertime to help contribute. So, if students aren't able to make that, they can request a student for loan for that. So they would be graduating again with about $9,000 potentially in loan debt as well. So it all works out in a way. It's just how you work it through and talking to the students. So I know that we've gotten into a little deep things here, and I want to kind of wrap this up and wrap our discussion up here and saying, thinking about all the things we talked about with financial aid and the admissions process and the COVID responsibilities. If I can go around and ask, how best for students to really kind of find out about our programs or get in touch with us, knowing the COVID challenges. We're not all at individual college fairs like we have been, or been able to travel to high schools and meet with folks. I know Aaron shared that, Skidmore does some Zoom sessions, and a bunch of you shared that there's interviews, but in general, and I'm going to go in a different direction here. I'm going to start in my bottom left corner and start with Claudette and say, Claudette, if a student is interested in BARD, HEOP, how's the best way for them to find out more from you?
I think for me, this time around, I'll say reach out to me directly. I think I'm not spending as much time on the road as I usually do. So, reach out to me. I think for me, like, I love a student that just reaches out, that asks all the right questions, that shows me commitment, that shows me determination. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. So reach out to me directly, and also make sure that you're, I'm hoping that you have a really good relationship with your counselor, on the grounds too. And that could be a great person that can reach out to us. I've spent a lot of time reaching out to counselors that I worked with in the past. I've attended a lot of virtual fairs. I'm actually interacting with students, taking name down. And I say, hey, I have your name down. Email me, call me, let's keep the conversation going. My program is so small that I think really identifying those individuals who are really willing to go the extra mile, given the circumstances, I think that's what I'm looking for.
Thank you, Claudette. Lauren, how about you at Vaughn? What's the best way for them to find out about Vaughn?
So similar to Claudette, I would say just reach out directly to me. I answer emails probably within the hour, no matter what time it is, especially now that we're all home, less commuting, less being out on the road, like Claudette said. We're also hosting weekly info sessions. So if you go right on the Vaughn website and drop down the HEOP tab, there's info sessions every week. We have them all different times, so we could accommodate people's schedule. Just pop into one of our info sessions. We're happy to answer all your questions. We've created a beautiful PowerPoint, and we think we've got everything down. I think we've done enough at this point that we answer all the questions in that short PowerPoint.
Excellent. I wish I could say I'm answering emails within an hour. Bill, how about you in St. Lawrence?
Yeah, I'm not answering within the hour unless it's during the day. But if you write me at 10 o'clock at night, I'll reply to you at 5 in the morning. So, you know, similar to what other colleagues have said, probably the best thing to do is go on the St. Lawrence University website, find the HEOP page, and my contact is right there. And I welcome any kind of questions, whatever the suggestions are, whatever it is that you need. I'm very happy to enter in that conversation, and I'm pretty reliable about replying that way. We're doing info sessions. I'm going and doing virtual college fairs as much as possible. But if you're getting this information right now, your best bet is go straight to us. And the only thing I would just make sure to actually point out, in my case, there is a St. Lawrence College that's in Canada, and they don't have HEOP. There's also a St. Louis University that's also not in New York State, and they don't have HEOP either. So if you're looking for me, make sure you're looking at St. Lawrence University.
Thanks, Bill. Nadine, how about you?
That's interesting, Bill, because there's actually an Alfred State College and then there's an Alfred University, and we are right across the street from one another. So I am Alfred University, not Alfred State College. And, you know, I forgot to mention too, and Wood, this kind of plays on with you too. Yes, by all means, go to the website and email me directly. But Wood and I have a very interesting situation because we are also have the Educational Opportunity Program because both of our institutions are affiliated with SUNY. So there's two programs at those two institutions at Cornell and Alfred University. Best to email me if you'd like to set up a time for us to talk rather than just through email. I can send me an email and I will send you my Calendly link so that you can schedule a time that we can Zoom and we'll chat. Whether it be, yeah, I'm like Bill too, during the day, I'm right on it. I'll get back to you. In the evening, it's a little bit more difficult because I'm getting older and bedtime comes earlier. But please just reach out. We're here to answer your questions. No question should go unasked. I think you will find that every institution that has HEOP is warm and friendly, and we are only here to help you meet your educational goals.
And Aaron, how about you, Skidmore? What's the best way to connect with you?
So like everyone said, you can email us, contact information's on our website. But I would encourage students to really try any institution you're applying for, whether there's HEOP or not, connect with students. And the best way to do that is through social media, specifically Instagram. Every institution has an Instagram page. Look at the people who are following. They usually have what year they graduate in their profile, so you can connect with them that way. Also look at student clubs and organizations. They often have Instagrams, and they will, you know, show you what's going on campus. Specifically at Skidmore, I would say look up spicy skid memes if you really want the tea. But I also encourage you to look at Pass the Mic and the Student Government Association. Follow those Instagram pages if you want to learn more about what Skidmore is dealing with right now and the challenges and also the joys that students have about being at Skidmore, because I think that'll give you an unfiltered look that you typically can't get from an admissions office self-guided tour information session.
Thank you, Aaron. I was wondering if you're going to go there, or if I was going to be the one to be able to say social media. I knew it was coming. So, you know, for Cornell, I actually encourage students not to email me directly, but to email our office account. We have a state programs at cornell.edu account. We're actually 3 folks on my team are watching that account in addition to me. So it really does help us make sure that we're getting back to folks quicker. And I've really been encouraging students to follow our Instagram account. We have a student run by our student ambassadors Instagram account. It's EOP_HEOP Cornell. And our student leaders are doing a great job posting stories about what's going on, spotlights of current students, spotlights of alumni. You'll get to see some of the events that we host as a family and get some of that. And you can DM them directly and the students will answer back some of those questions. So I think, you know, Aaron, you're right on point. As always, with social media is a great way to connect. So with that, I want to thank you all for taking the time to help answer these questions today. Bill, Lauren, Claudette, Nadine, Aaron, I really appreciate you all stepping up and doing this. And, you know, like was said, if you're watching this and you're at the CICU panel, or the CICU fair, jump into our rooms, come say hi, come ask some questions. So good luck with your process, folks. It's not going to be short. It's not going to be painless. I can guarantee that. It is a process. But you know, we hope that it works well for you, and we'll talk to you all soon. So be safe and take care of yourselves.